So you're usually out visiting businesses and communities, but COVID-19 has really cut into, traveling and so forth. We do thank you for being here today. But how has COVID-19 changed your job as Lieutenant Governor?
Well, much like everyone, it's changed everybody's job. And one of the things I really enjoy doing is getting out and visiting communities across the state. I think some of that comes from my start in government and local government and being geographically removed from the capital. So being from Evansville, we always felt that disconnect from our capital city. And knowing that that is how many communities do feel, particularly those communities that are geographically removed, I found it was important, and Governor Holcomb does also, to get out and travel the state and connect with those communities. Because when we talk about how great Indiana is and how many jobs we have created this year, those are jobs that are happening in communities. The things that make Indiana great are the things that are happening in our communities. So the ability to be able to connect and partner and let them know that we're in it together, I think just from my standpoint, is so terribly important. And that is what has been impacted and has changed. Because of COVID-19, I didn't travel at all from March till August. And then my travel has been somewhat restricted from August now till the end of the year, for sure. So it has impacted my ability to really get out and visit and connect with communities like I normally do. I know that Senator Brown is from an area that is geographically removed from the state, and I don't know. And Liz, you come from local government. Wait, I'm supposed to talk this way, right? Liz, you come from local government, and so you've been on that kind of receiving end. Do you feel the same way?
Yes, but I've been impressed with the way we've been able to adapt to Zoom meetings and things like that, WebEx, whatever your venue is. But I've also been able to have some meetings, like a task force on the schools for the blind and deaf down in Indianapolis with lots of social distancing. And I think all of our state staff has done a great job of trying to figure out how to keep the public engaged, because of course, as you know better than I, we need to make sure we have the public involved in these kinds of committee hearings and things too. And that's problematic, but they've done a great job.
Yeah. But nothing replaces that kind of personal visit and touch.
Yeah. And you wanted to include Senator Brown because there are some things that the two of you are working together on. What are some of those things?
Well, as you know, Senator Brown, will start session here starting in January, and we are in a long budget session. It'll go to the end of April. That's tentatively. No one really knows for sure how that's going to evolve. But I'm president of the Senate. And so when the Senate is in session, I'm conducting the Senate. So Senator Brown and I have worked together on a number of issues and continue to be engaged, not just on women's issues, but on economic development issues, to be able to promote not just Allen County, but entire parts of the state. And Senator Brown also has been involved in a lot of health issues. And being when I was a state representative, I was vice president or vice chair of the health committee. And so I've had a lot of interest in health issues that she also has had. So we try to work together because I'm very impressed by Senator Brown's intellect and her ability to be able to communicate clearly and concisely. I will tell you this, when she gets up in front of the Senate, she knows what she's talking about, and you better know what you're talking about if you question her. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for Senator Brown.
Are we going to see our senators wearing masks next January?
Well, we did have an organization day in November, and all the senators had masks on in the chambers. So, I think they take it very seriously, and, I expect that what that, custom that was set on org day will probably carry on into session. I don't know, Senator Brown, do you have any different thoughts?
No, we are all planning on wearing masks, as you saw on org day. Lieutenant Governor, we already socially distanced. I got to be up in the gallery because we separated everybody's seats, so we're not all sitting together. And so the staff has done a great job of prepping us for that. So I think everyone's comfortable with that, and they should be. That's a minor inconvenience, if anything. And I think when we left org day, they were working on how to put voting machines up there, so we don't have to yell over the balcony.
And you said Indiana will be getting 400,000 doses, was it?
We were briefed earlier this week by last week rather, by Dr. Weaver from the State Department of Health, and she indicated in the first round of doses that will be delivered, Indiana is to receive approximately 400,000 doses, and they'll go to the hospitals. Why the hospitals? Because they have the cold storage capacity. And then from there, they will be administered to our healthcare workers and to long-term care facilities. And then that's kind of the 1A phase. The 1B phase will go to over 65 at-risk individuals, Hoosiers. When the next round comes in, which is phase 2, that'll go to our law enforcement and our first responders, our teachers, and then the phase 3 will be the general public. And what she shared with us is by mid to late summer, any Hoosier that wants to be vaccinated will be able to be vaccinated. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. I think what's going to happen is Hoosiers are going to experience two emotions. They're going to be relieved, and they're going to find comfort knowing that the vaccine is there. But it's also going to be very frustrating because everyone will want the vaccine right now. And just as we saw testing kind of come out in stages, the vaccine will also follow the same kind of progress.
Are we going to see you and Governor Holcomb on camera getting vaccinated?
I haven't discussed that with the governor. If that would help to bolster Hoosiers' confidence, I'm sure that's something we would consider.
One of the agencies that you oversee, the Indiana Office of Community and Rural Affairs, last month announced, improvements to the Indiana Main Street program, and will begin accepting applications for new organizations to join the program that stopped last year. So what accomplishments have occurred in the Main Street program, and why does it continue to be important to the state?
Well, Main Street are really the heartbeat of our small rural communities. And a vibrant, developed Main Street, it increases property values, it creates jobs, and it also will attract tourists to those communities. So having that vibrant Main Street organization that promotes the downtown and kind of encourages and supports businesses that are located in downtown communities is so critically important. And so the steps that we have taken to encourage our Main Street organizations have really paid off. In fact, Indiana has, if not one of the largest Main Street organizations in the country. So what we are doing is we are looking at ways that we can continue to strengthen our main streets and provide them with the help and the support that they need to be vibrant. And then tied to that will be grant money that'll be available to them. So it's almost like we are attempting to take our main streets to the next level and to really, particularly as we are coming out of COVID, to give them more tools to be successful and to develop and continue that thriving downtown that is so critical in our small rural communities.
You mentioned, and a lot of those small towns, rely on tourism, as you mentioned, and you're also, head of the tourism group, in Indiana. Can you talk a little bit about how that's been hit this year and what kind of efforts that have been made to try and help those small businesses?
Absolutely. Probably the hardest hit and most immediate hit industry was our travel and leisure related industry because Hoosiers were staying at home. They were encouraged to not venture out, to be very careful, when they did. So what we looked at doing is how can we bolster that industry? How can we give Hoosiers the confidence to be able to visit establishments and know that they're safe? And what transpired is we created the Hoosier Hospitality Promise. And this is an endeavor where establishments will go on to our Hoosier Hospitality Promise website and they will sign up and they will promise that they will follow the CDC and our Department of Health guidelines to keep Hoosiers safe. In addition, Hoosiers can go online to see which establishments are, or not just establishments, but destinations are part of that Hoosier Hospitality Promise. And in instances, they can also sign and agree to take the steps to be safe as they visit these establishments. That is something that we did immediately. We also created the COVID-19 Recovery Response initiative and created a group of stakeholders to discuss steps that we can take to be able to bolster our tourism and travel related industry. And then of course, $4 million of CARES Act money was made available to organizations, not-for-profits, destinations that have suffered as a result of COVID-19, and we were able to award that $4 million to festivals and to destinations throughout Indiana to help offset the effects of COVID-19, because Indiana has some 650 festivals, throughout the state of Indiana, festivals in Steuben County, festivals in Allen and Whitley and DeKalb County, festivals that Hoosiers enjoy and that they want to travel and be a part of. It's so much who we are as Hoosiers and speaks to our culture. And so those organizations were not able to hold events this year, and in order to help alleviate the effects of that, we were able to provide some grant money. But we continue to know that we still have work to do, and as we come out of COVID-19 and as we continue to see Hoosiers be vaccinated and get that confidence, we need to be sure that we encourage Hoosiers to visit the assets and the destinations we have here in the state of Indiana, like the Pokagon State Park and the toboggan ride, which probably isn't happening this year. It is happening this year. Oh my! Well, I might have to make another trip up here.
COVID distanced, but there's a lot of changes. But they've done a great job in getting the thing operating in a safe fashion.
Yes, we took Mike and I took a toboggan ride back a couple years, 2 years ago maybe.
17.
Oh my goodness, that long ago. And it was quite an experience. You could do two of them, and I gave up my second attempt. But yes, so that is what we are doing. But it's an industry that we need to continue to focus on. We did transition our tourism state agency to the Indiana Destination Development Corporation, a quasi-government agency, effective July 1 of this year. And Elaine Beadle, the former president of the IEDC, is heading that agency up and are doing a number of things to prepare for when we are out and Hoosiers feel confident to visit destinations and establishments throughout Indiana. Tourism is such an important part of economic development because 76 cents of every tourism dollar that's spent in a community stays in that community. And so it's absolutely critical that we continue to support tourism, and when Hoosiers are safe and ready, we're there to get them to where they need to go. And we have a national park now. Indiana was, I believe, the last state in the country to actually be a part of our national park and trail system. So a lot of great things to celebrate.
As you might be aware, we have a new Division of State Parks Director. He hails from Northeast Indiana.
Yeah, Dan comes from here?
Terry Coleman,
Oh, okay. All right.
Division of State Parks.
Okay.
Anyway, I was having a conversation with Terry a couple weeks ago, and even though the parks were shut down for weeks at the beginning of COVID and opening up Memorial Weekend, Terry told me through 40 weeks of 2020, the revenue for the Division of State Parks has already surpassed all 52 weeks of 2019. So
It's their best year ever,
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, people are getting out, they're doing it safely when they visit the parks.
You mentioned CARES Act money, and I know Housing and Community Development Authority used like $15 million in emergency solution grant CARES Act funding for rental assistance. How have the agencies that you oversee used CARES Act money this year?
On housing, because they have received the lion's share, among my agencies, the lion's share of the CARES Act money. Actually, $40 million has been used for rental assistance, and we expected with that $40 million to be able to help 20,000 Hoosiers with their rental assistance. And as of Friday, it was 20,300. So that has been a wildly successful effort to help Hoosiers that are struggling during this time. We also have a mortgage payment assistance program, and we have to date, I think, assisted 500 families with their mortgage payments, and we continue to have money available there. With our energy assistance program, I think to date we have, I want to say we have provided something like 15 million. I need to double check on those figures and let me do that for you. But that also has been very, very effective. I think we've impacted some 50,000 Hoosiers all over the state with our energy assistance program through that agency. So that is just one agency that has been providing CARES Act money. The Office of Community and Rural Affairs, or OCRA as we call it, also at the beginning of COVID-19, we kind of put a pause on our regional stellar program, which of course the New Allen Alliance has been a awardee of that program. We put a pause on that, and we repurposed $4.5 million to COVID response recovery for our communities throughout Indiana to help them deal with the effects of COVID-19, whether that be through, the PPE, or whether that would be through loans and grants to businesses, small businesses. We were able to provide that money. And I think to date we have provided an additional $40 million of CARES Act money through OCRA that is in the process of being distributed out there to help communities recover. So that has been an area that the federal government, but also state government, has recognized is the importance of our small rural communities throughout, not just Indiana, but throughout the country by making CARES Act money available to them. Because much of the money that comes to OCRA is community development block grant money through HUD. But then our Department of Agriculture has made available $4 million in meat processing plants to help them with their expenses that they've incurred through COVID-19. As we all know, that kind of disruption of the food supply chain, we all experienced a little bit here in Indiana, and our two major meat processing plants were closed down in Delphi and Logansport for periods of time because of COVID-19 and workers contracting it. And so the ability of our independent meat processors became even more important. So we recognize and we're committed moving forward over the next 4 years to not just have provided this CARES Act money, but we want to continue to provide assistance so that those independent meat processing plants can grow and be able to help in the future if we ever get into a situation like we did with this latest COVID-19. So those are some of the, and then of course I mentioned that the Indiana Destination Development Corporation was able to provide $4 million in grant funding for our events and cultural events and destinations throughout Indiana. So those are just kind of some small ways that we will be able to help with the CARES Act money.
Okay. Well, we were talking about housing, and one way of attracting new residents is by providing affordable entry-level housing, and that seems to be a scarcity here, and we're trying to attract, more people to on our road to 1 million. So what's being done to help accomplish that?
Well, this will be something that I'll be talking about in the future, but I guess it's okay to talk about a little early here. One of the things that we were looking forward to doing last March with our housing agency is undertaking a housing inventory study where we would, on a county by county, statewide basis, look at all the housing needs, not just affordable housing, but workforce housing, single family housing, multi-family housing, look at our housing that is currently in every county, look at the needs that we have, and then develop a strategy and a long-term plan towards meeting those needs. We put that on hold because of COVID-19, but we will be looking at here in 2021 to reinstating that and moving forward with it. It was a public-private partnership. So the public, the state was going to provide some money, but then our stakeholders, bankers, realtors, credit unions, they were also going to provide funding for this study. It's going to be a web-based study. It's going to be interactive so that people can actually interact and make it adapt to what their needs are and what they're wanting to know in their particular area. But that is going to be so critically important to economic development because we're attracting more people to Indiana than ever before. In fact, we have already created right under 28,000 jobs here in the state of Indiana. 28,000 jobs, which is more than what we created in 2019. But if we don't have housing available, then we can't keep attracting those jobs. And if a particular area like Allen County or DeKalb or Steuben or Whitley, if they have people that are wanting and companies that are wanting to come in and companies that are wanting to expand, but there's no housing for the workers, it's going to impede that economic development. So this is going to be extremely important as we move forward to ensure that we have adequate housing for not just the Hoosiers that live here, but for Hoosiers, future Hoosiers that we can attract here. And statewide, our building permits are up 11%. And I think
in Allen County, we've surpassed 1 million.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. Do you, Liz, have any kind of insights on that?
I couldn't agree more. I know 2 years ago, Senator Rotz had a bill to address the shortage of workforce housing and to try to incentivize it. And I think that's just one piece of the puzzle, as you pointed out, Lieutenant Governor. You have a broader spectrum of how to deal with the economic development issues all of our communities face. But we saw that from Kosciuszko and Senator Rotz is from Richmond, Indiana, that these companies are expanding. And in order to attract new people there, they've got a new job, maybe they want to buy a house. And so their starter house is not really something that a lot of builders want to get into. They don't make as much money there. So his bill was a good start. And I really look forward to your task force and your continued work on this so that we can make sure that our workers are able to live here, move here, and buy a house here.
Yeah, and I might mention that Biomet in Warsaw is participating in one of our workforce housing pilot projects where they're providing money The state has provided some money, and then they're developing a program for workforce housing. So, we're trying different ways to try to figure out the best way to have those private-public partnerships so that when we do the study and we come up with the strategy, that can be a part of it also. So.
Okay. Broadband is another big thing that,
That's
to
the
attract
biggest thing.
businesses. Can you talk a little bit about, how we're trying to, we've made that a priority with the Regional Chamber of Northeast Indiana.
Absolutely, and I know Senator Brown will want to jump in on this one. It's what we learned through COVID-19 is that being connected is no longer a luxury, it's essential. With our students e-learning and people teleworking and healthcare being delivered, teleservices and telehealth, we have got to be connected. And back in 2018, Purdue University did a study, said there were almost 500,000 Hoosiers that were in internet darkness, and if they were all connected, it would result in $1 billion in our state's economy every year. So we knew then that being connected was important, and that's why Governor Holcomb and the General Assembly allocated $100 million to expand broadband throughout Indiana. We have to date awarded 79 grants, awarded grants totaling 79 million rather, out of that 100 million to communities, to providers all over the state. And that will result in over 20,000 households being connected. I think it's close to 22,000, either households or businesses being connected. But we have a lot of work to still do to move forward. And so there will be a priority in the General Assembly in this session, I know, because I've heard from a number of legislators who are working on legislation to address broadband and hopefully even find some funding in the budget for broadband so that we can continue to expand, because it affects every aspect of a Hoosier's life: workforce, healthcare, education, economic development, and quality of life. And it is critical that our Hoosiers in our rural areas can enjoy economic opportunity and quality of life, and they need to be connected in order to do that. So it continues to be a priority of the Holcomb Crouch administration and the General Assembly moving forward. And Senator Brown, I know you've got something to say on that.
I do. I think it's really great what your office has done in the lead on this, and the 79 million spent so far. Definitely communities are seeing the impact, but obviously this pandemic showed us where our weaknesses are. But I do think it's important to realize, there are areas in my city of Fort Wayne, for example, where some of the students who are now doing e-learning may not have access, but there's broadband available. So that's a different decision and a discussion at another time on how to make it more affordable. We saw that a lot of schools are doing one-on-one, and so they gave out iPads and laptops and things to their students so they could connect. Some of it they were planning on doing anyway, like Gary schools. So that's really important to sort of distinguish that. I think we need to make sure that we prioritize it, as Lieutenant Governor's office has done so far, because obviously the last mile is very, very expensive. And so sometimes it's sort of like our utilities that we already have, electric, for example, where do they think they will grow and build, so we can tap into that and have it shovel ready, if you will, broadband ready. That's another piece. But I do think it's really interesting how people are understanding. Who knew what that WFH meant, work from home? I had a son sitting here for several months when he was quarantining. Fortunately, we had, I guess, enough internet, or I didn't use it very much maybe, so we didn't jump on each other's speeds. But it is interesting. And the telehealth, of course, is a whole nother issue, going forward. How are they going to use that? And then there's the whole security issue of electronic records and sharing information and making sure the patient still has the privacy. So there's a lot to it, but I really appreciate Lieutenant Governor Crouch's lead on this, and understanding that there are rural issues and even urban issues in terms of how you're going to access this in the future. But I think everybody is committed to trying to continue to work on this.
But much like rural electrification in the 1930s, Because Senator Brown mentioned the expense in getting connected to the last mile, there have been estimates that it'll be $2 to $3 billion to connect every Hoosier here in Indiana. Much like rural electrification in the 1930s, the federal government at that time said having electricity is essential to quality of life and to economic development, and they partnered with the states to be able to make that a reality. And I think we're going to have the same kind of commitment on the federal level to get Hoosiers connected to the last mile. We'll do our part, and $100 million is no small investment, and I think it speaks to the commitment we have made as a state. But coming up with $2 to $3 billion is going to be a little more challenging.
Will there be incentives to the rural electric cooperatives to wire their customers?
That's a possibility.
LaGrange and Steuben are currently undertaking projects to put fiber on their poles. And I'm sure they would be happy to know if there was going to be money available for their project.
I would say at this point everything is on the table. There are a lot of legislators working on legislation, and as you know, during the General Assembly it's a work in progress. So there will be a lot of things that'll be put on and taken off, and everything's on the table at this point because we all are committed as a result of COVID-19 and seeing the effects it has had on Hoosier families and businesses. We're all committed to getting Hoosiers connected.
And you're Secretary of Agriculture in Indiana, and you said during the September debates during the among the lieutenant governor candidates that 21st century agriculture is high technology. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can talk to your farmers in the fields, and they'll demonstrate to you the large combines that they have and how they operate on technology, from the planting of the seeds to the spreading of the fertilizer. Drones are being utilized more and more to look at fields and to identify issues and problems within their within their field and their crop production. All that is technology. A lot of that has to have the broadband available, so it kind of goes hand in hand. But Purdue University is the 8th largest agriculture or recognized school, I believe, in the country or the nation. Randy will probably shake a head, I don't know. But they have become an incredibly valuable partner to agriculture because of the research that they do. Ag is big business, and it also is high-tech business. When I talk big business to Rotaries and chambers, they don't automatically think of agriculture, but it is a $31 billion business. And that's not just the farming aspect, that's the agribusiness aspect of it, the ag technology aspect of it. It's a $31 billion addition to our state's economy every year. We're the 10th largest farming state. And so as the world moves more towards technology, agriculture has to stay abreast, and we have to do the same thing. And so those partnerships, public-private partnerships, the ability of our Department of Ag to highlight and promote and partner with our agribusinesses and with our farmers to ensure that they had the right technology, and then the state's commitment to ensuring that everyone is connected, is what is going to be needed for that 21st century ag technology.
When we were talking about the whole broadband before, we sort of forgot, or I did, in terms of the farmers. And if there's anyone more tech savvy right now, it's a farmer. And so even though they may be out there in their 1,000+ acres by themselves, they need access to them too. So I certainly think, when you drive down to Indianapolis, you maybe forget that the ag is also the backbone of Indiana as well, when you see all the high rises and tech companies down there. But Lieutenant Governor Crouch keeps that at the forefront, and it's a really important part of our agriculture. And we also see a lot more younger people starting to get into it, specialty farms and things like that, and that's very encouraging.
Well, and I might just add our Indiana Grown program, which we started somewhere like 4 or 5 years ago. It's a free membership to be an Indiana Grown member. And if you produce, grow, or process agriculture products in Indiana, you can be an Indiana Grown member. So we have a lot of small entrepreneurs, a lot of boutique kind of ag endeavors that are part of Indiana Grown program. And then what our State Department of Agriculture does is they promote and they market and help these small businesses get their products out into the marketplace. It's been a wildly successful program. The General Assembly, back a couple of sessions ago, allocated resources, money for that program to be able to continue to promote and encourage our small agriculture entrepreneurs and businesses throughout Indiana. And to date, we have over 1,500 members. So it's been a very successful program and one that really is what Indiana's all about.
Our unemployment figures for October are pretty close to what we were in January before the pandemic hit. What kinds of things have you done, over this year to help get Hoosiers back to work?
Well, first of all of our COVID-related programs, whether it's COVID response, COVID recovery, whether it's CARES Act money, or whether it's our agencies refocusing, repurposing their resources to help families and businesses, 2020 has been all about COVID-19. I took a picture, I took a number of pictures with our Hoosier homestead families, and these are farmers whose farms have been in the family business for 100, 150, and 200 years, and we have awards that we give to them every year. And we did that in August and September, but everyone had to wear a mask, and so we were taking pictures with the mask on, and we kind of joked that in 10, 15 years, nobody will know who's in the picture, but they'll all know it was 2020, because that is what this year has been about. So really our energies, our resources, our manpower has really been focused on COVID-19, keeping Hoosiers safe and healthy, and then positioning ourselves to come out of this. But as I mentioned, our jobs created are greater than they were in 2019. Building permits statewide are up, greater than they were in 2019. And so there's a lot of activity and successes that are taking place. And I attribute that to the solid foundation that we have here in Indiana, where we balance budgets and we have low taxes and we are AAA credit bond rating and by all three independent rating agencies, and we have over $2 billion. Well, we had over a $2 billion surplus. Those are the things that allow us to be able to get through COVID and come out on the other side positioned to really take it to the next level.
Is there anything else that you'd like to mention, either about this past year or the agencies that you oversee?
Well, I was sure a funny little story, and then maybe Senator Brown has something she'd like to share. When the governor said to work at home, I went to Evansville, and I actually have an apartment. Mike knows this, I live in Indianapolis during the week, but then I travel to Evansville every weekend because that's where my home is, and that's where my husband is, and I go home. And so when Governor Holcomb said go home and work, I went to Evansville and I lasted 2 days. And he packed my bags and waved me goodbye, So, it's just been an adjustment for every Hoosier. We've all had to, we just had to change our lives, and we've had to change the way we do things. And, there's a lot of unhappiness because we're having to do things that we normally wouldn't have to do. But I think that Hoosiers have, by and large, have embraced that and have understood that this is something that we're all in and we're going to come out of it. And it's important that we take care of ourselves and take care of each other. So let's continue to do that, and let's continue to take the steps we need to be safe and to keep others safe. And the economy, we will continue to do what we need to do to be able to keep it strong here in Indiana and provide jobs for Hoosier families. And but I'll be glad when 2020 is behind us.
Speaking of the future, will we be seeing you running for governor in 4 years?
Do you know, I always say that everything about politics is timing and preparation. And, you know, as a result of being a local elected official and then being in the executive and legislative branches of state government, the preparation will be there. But right now, I'm focused on being the very best lieutenant governor I can be, and a partner to Governor Holcomb, and working to get out of COVID-19 and make sure that our agencies are there to take care of Hoosiers. And if you do what's right, everything else will take care of itself.
Is there anything Senator Brown would like to say?
I would. I think Lieutenant Governor Crouch is being way too modest. When we talk about the $2 billion reserves we used to have, but we are in such a better place in other states. It's hard to appreciate that sometimes in the middle of all of this, but having been on the budget committee and hearing what Ivy Tech is working on and our Department of Workforce Development, they're always looking to reach out to those displaced workers, even through this, trying to get them skilled up, certificates, the last mile to get back and finish their degree. And it's because of the leadership of the Lieutenant Governor. And I don't think we should underestimate how important it is for us to be able to backfill our unemployment insurance fund and to make sure that as we get out of this, our employers aren't hit with a double tax, so that they can start scaling up, bringing everyone back to work, and even adding jobs. And it is to her credit and the leadership of this state. I have family all over the country, and they are struggling so much more than we are because they haven't been careful and frugal. And so here we are in this conversation in a pandemic year, talking about, for example, expanding broadband, which is really something. At the same time, we're talking about, you know, how to replace jobs and keep our economy, not just growing it back, but moving. And it's because of the leadership of people like Lieutenant Governor Crouch. It really is a lot easier to do my job when you have people at the helm like that.
I actually had a couple things I wanted to say too. Lieutenant Governor Crouch was correct. It is about $79 million we've awarded, and it's 21,900 locations. So that was correct. And I know a lot of her agencies have had some type of COVID related funding. Those cultural and arts DMO grants, that total was actually close to $10 million. It was just shy. I knew that was kind of a little off because I just know none of the amounts are the same. So the ISDA meat processing is a little bit different than that. And to go along with broadband, this is probably good information for the senator too. If you're looking for coverage of how to tie that in, there was news today from the FCC. It's like a phase 1 auction. This is like a 10-year support to, you know, further expand broadband across the state. Indiana did receive, or I should say, providers like REMCs and other co-ops did receive quite a bit of funding. And you can see their news release on the FCC's website. And like, again, it just came out today, but it's looking like there's going to be $169 million of support that's going to go to 11 different bidders or winning bidders. And that's going to impact nearly 153,000 locations across the state. I think it really says something that, you know, our federal partners, you know, at the other level really see a big need to address broadband, especially in rural areas. And I think if you look at some of the names, you might see that there are, I can see a map that shows where some of these areas are impacted, and there are some in Northeast Indiana. And I think that further just shows that everyone is realizing, no matter if it's at a local, state, or federal level, that we need to make sure broadband's available to everybody.